Thank you, Yanni. Appreciate the introduction. And good morning, everyone. Usually when people are going to speak and there's panels, people will ask people to turn off their cell phones and kind of power them down. Or it doesn't bother me at all to hear that, but I would ask you to do that for our panelists when we get into that. I'm really excited to be here this morning. I'm a member of the Hawthorne Foundation, and Hawthorne Foundation works very closely with the Department of Economic Development in helping the state and the governor to attract businesses to Missouri and kind of grow the economy in the state. So I'm very proud of the fact that I'm associated with that organization and the opportunity to talk with you this morning. I am going to be introducing the panelists, the four panelists this morning. Our first session, as you know, is the automotive industry here in Missouri, with the tagline of driving growth. The Ford Motor Company is celebrating 100 years in Kansas City this year. And Ford, along with some of its suppliers, are here today to discuss the current and projected trends and issues of the automobile industry. So it's my pleasure to have here today with a very distinctive panel to share their insight on the trends and the economic impact of the automotive industry nationally and here in Missouri. First person that I'd like to introduce is Kim Hill. And Kim is the Director of Sustainability and Economic Development Strategies and Associate Research Director for the Center of Automotive Research. Kim focuses on sustainability solutions for communities whose traditional auto sector is undergoing unprecedented restructuring. Under his guidance, the group is developing a cradle-to-cradle understanding of competitive business issues, environmental impacts, and community needs, while at the same time mapping the manufacturing process and the process chain in order to identify junctions where best business practices and environmental stewardship intersect. So thank you for being here with us, Kim. Next on the panel is Mark Lapine. He's with the F-150 Consumer Marketing Manager for Ford Motor Company. Mark has been with Ford for 17 years, serving in various roles in marketing and in branding Ford products. He was involved in developing and executing the F-150 EcoBoost torture test, and that's designed to put its single EcoBoost engine through a durability cycle that would be more extreme than any consumer and any of us could actually put it through. So, Mark, thank you for joining us as well. Next is Frank Irvine III. He's the Director of Government Affairs for Magna International, Inc. Frank is responsible for managing all federal, state, and local legislative affairs and activities for Magna International in the United States. He also works with all business units of Magna on matters involving and needing legislative relations assistance. And finally, our fourth panelist is Robbie Harris. Robbie's the General Sales Manager for Knapheide, Kansas City. Robbie has over 27 years of management and sales experience dealing with all sizes of fleets, dealerships, and clients. And he's been establishing an extremely successful and proven track record in the truck equipment industry. So please welcome our four panelists.
Well, thanks, John. I was going to offer you my seat, but after my introduction, but you did all four of them. The risk there is falling asleep because those are very comfortable. Yeah, as John said, I'm with the Center for Automotive Research in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I've come out here a number of times. Certainly, one of the first engagements was not necessarily a good reason to come out, but Ford was considering closing the Explorer plant in St. Louis, and we helped some folks keep that open for a while, and then the SUV market has just basically imploded, and so some of the larger factors came into play. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for having me. I hope everybody has had their coffee, and I've got a number of slides here, so hang tight. Sometimes I'm going to speed these things up, and I just want to stay on time here. So like I said, I'll just introduce you to our organization. I'm going to do a quick industry update, just a few slides. I've got an economic contribution study that's very analogous to what goes on here in Missouri, even though it was done for a Michigan plant. We've got some numbers on tax revenues that are generated by the industry that go to the state and federal coffers, and then finally I'm going to wind up with just a little bit about the small suppliers that are so integral to this industry. Like I said, we're from our organization, Center for Automotive Research. We're an independent nonprofit research organization focused on the automotive industry, really the global industry, but mostly how the global players are coming to bear in North America. We do a number of analyses focused on industry impact, economics, forecasting, and how does policy and environmental concerns play into all of that. So it's a big field that we play in. We have four main research groups: manufacturing, engineering, and technology, transportation systems analysis, industry labor analysis group, and then sustainability and economic development strategies. Sorry, you guys have a much better view of my slides than I do, so I'm going to have to keep looking over here to see what the heck it was that I put on there. So quickly, where's the industry at right now? And these are July figures. I haven't, August figures just came out yesterday, and didn't have enough time to pack them into a slide, but the trend really continues. In July, the total market was up 8.5%, and light trucks were leading that charge, up 12%. And some of our other panelists may focus on that a little bit more. But here's the breakdown by major segment, and you can see that 8.5% increase in sales from year-to-date 2013 compared to year-to-date same period in 2012, driven by the CUVs. The small things that we used to call station wagons back when I was young that are now called CUVs, and pickup trucks really driving the market. Luxury cars and small cars are not too far behind the industry average, but you can see mid-sized cars, SUVs are basically, there's not too much going on there. Large cars and vans are really off from previous times. So. Monthly sales figures, this is a very busy chart, but really what you want to focus on is how that red line up top is trending, and that's the seasonally adjusted annual rate of sales. So each month they extrapolate that over to a year. If it was selling like that month for the entire year, those would be the sales. And the Wall Street Journal yesterday came out and said that the August sales figures put us above where the pre-recession levels for the industry, which is pretty fantastic for this industry and all of the stakeholders in that industry. So this trend keeps going up, and where we thought it was going to plateau, we shot past that. So we're not making any bets where it's plateauing or not. So big 7 monthly U.S. market shares. You can see what's gone on since the 90s, and even before that. The Detroit 3 companies pretty much dominated the market up until the mid 1980s, and we got a lot more competition into the mix. And as so often happens when you've got that many choices, it rationalizes out. And so it's pretty much come to a spot now where most of the players are where they're going to be on market share. There might be some little tweaks up and down, but you can see the market's fairly well distributed and the like. So an economic contribution, we've done a number of these studies on what does the automotive industry mean to the national economy, what does it mean to individual state economies, what does the portions of the automobile industry, for instance, individual companies, what are their operations in the United States? How is that contributing to the economy in terms of earnings and job creation? So this is a study we did a few years back. We're hoping to update that soon. And we looked at, we take all the direct jobs in the automotive industry, so everybody who's employing folks that are building motor vehicles here in the country, all the companies, we put those into a model and then run it through it, and it estimates a number of things. We've done this for a number of years, and the model is a real good model. So what it shows is 8 million private sector jobs are supported by the U.S. automotive industry, and nearly $500 billion in annual compensation for those 8 million people, and $70 billion in personal tax revenues alone. And so, when we look at that, we did a 50-state breakout at the time, and so this is just a slice of it from that indicates what in Missouri. There's 99,000 of those jobs that are here with the direct, and you can see the supplier employment and the spin-off employment that comes from that. And this is the operations within the United States. So the company doesn't necessarily have to be in Missouri, but it's creating jobs in Missouri. I'm sure you all understand that phenomenon. And so to give a little more perspective on this, I'm sorry I don't have a Missouri example, but this is very analogous to a manufacturing state. We did a study recently in cooperation with Ford Motor Company and the state of Michigan, and looked at one assembly plant in the state to determine what was the impact of one assembly plant just on the state employment, with no other external out-of-state inputs into it at all. So all of these are generated by one assembly plant. And so that the Michigan assembly plant, so when we looked at it, was retooled and renovated over the period from 08 to 10. It's probably the most flexible automotive assembly plant in existence right now. It's building 4 different powertrains are coming out of that facility, and two different platforms. So it's the Ford Focus and the C-Max. So Ford has invested over $770 billion at the plant to convert it. It used to be a truck plant. Now it's been converted to a car plant. Like I said, a highly flexible one. The plant purchases over $1 billion in parts annually from the state of Michigan-based companies. 1.8 billion throughout the rest of the U.S. total, and then $3.2 billion total in parts purchases for one plant. I mean, these are astonishing numbers. They're served by 179 Tier 1 suppliers, and 80 of those firms are located in Michigan. Direct employment's 5,000 people. When we factor that into our model, we find that it's supporting 19,000 more jobs just in the state of Michigan alone. It's supporting 48,000 jobs total across the country. They generate $1.8 billion in annual wages, $3.6 billion nationally, and let's see, $70 million in Michigan state taxes annually. So, this kind of goes to the heart of should states be involved in helping companies expand their operations? And these are all individual issues and things you need to figure out yourselves. But the auto industry and its major big suppliers have such a high multiplier across a lot of other industries that this is a really good bet. If you get in and you help them invest, you can see rather quickly, year after year after year, these generate these $70 million in state taxes annually. That's every year. That's not just one time. That goes on and on and on. So just to give a little graphic example, the Michigan assembly plant's located there in southeast Michigan, and you can see $1 billion in spending in Michigan, but also in Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, and Ontario. Pretty substantial numbers. And this kind of fits into that just-in-time window. They like to have their suppliers close for any assembly plant. So again, it's analogous to other plants. So a plant here in Missouri would have different spin-off effects in the states around it, and it may not reach up to Michigan as much, but it's it has to do with that just-in-time. How quickly can you get the parts to it? So looking at this, $1.8 billion in the United States, 61 million in Canada. The numbers that attract our attention are ones like 830 million in Mexico and 448 million in the rest of the world. Now we've seen recently, certainly with the tsunami and the floods in Thailand and the issues within the supply chain, that the companies are trying to bring suppliers much closer. They want to reduce the risk. We think that there's tremendous opportunity in places like this, And that's where you can be proactive, working with these companies and say, what could you bring onshore? What can we help you bring onshore instead of going out over there? Certainly there's some things you'll never bring onshore because they can't be built profitably here, but there are things on the margins for sure. And then just looking at it, we did a little bit of a deep dive on this and talked to some of the suppliers to the plant, asked them where they were getting their parts, and lo and behold, a lot of their lower tier suppliers were in the state of Michigan as well. And we started to hear from some of these folks that they were worried about capacity constraints through the system. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But also the plant produces battery electric, hybrid electric, and plug-in hybrid vehicles there. So this is an entirely different component set than what you need when you're building a normally internal combustion engine vehicle. And so we looked at the list, we worked with Ford, and we said, what are those discrete suppliers that are now supplying that electric side of the vehicle? And came up with a map that looks like this. And again, if this is the way where the industry is going, certainly on plug-in hybrids is a very good path, and the hybrids, not the pure electrics, certainly it's not panning out as much as it has, but those other two segments, these are companies maybe you want to be watching for, expanding their operations as these technologies proliferate through the companies. We've heard from Toyota that every one of their vehicles or every one of their models in a not too distant future is going to be offered in a plug-in and a hybrid version. So there's tremendous opportunities out there for companies in this space to expand. And another quick study that we did for the Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers out of Washington was looking at this tax revenue that's generated by the automotive sector across a number of categories. We found that the industry generates over $130 billion in government tax revenue in that year, 2010, 91 million for state government and 43 billion for the feds. And it breaks out as sales tax, income tax, taxes and fees on use, and business taxes and fees. Again, here's the breakdown by the state, the feds, and then, relative, looking at some of the states, we wanted to look at what percentage of their state tax revenue is generated by these categories in the automotive segment. And you can see where Missouri is a little bit above the average, which I think is about 13%. 15% of your state tax revenues come from automotive uses. Automotive, the automotive industry, one producing and income taxes from the workers, but also sales, use of the vehicle, gasoline taxes, and the like. So the automotive industry across that entire spectrum is certainly helping out a lot of states, meet their revenues. And then just for Missouri, we did a breakdown here. I don't want to read all the way through these, but total tax revenues is $1.5 billion. And which is, like I said, 15%. So you get, 9.8 billion from all industries. 15% of that's from this auto sector along all of these categories right here. We have any of these studies are on our website at cargroup.org. You can go in and pull up this study and find it for every single state if you'd like, or contact me. I'd be happy to walk you through some of this. So like I said, small suppliers, when we did the Michigan Assembly Plant study, as we talked to the tier ones, about where they were getting their supplies, we only talked to 5 of them, and 3 of them said to us, I'm awful concerned about my supply chain, that I'm not sure that they're going to be able to keep up with demand. Remember I said, the chart I showed earlier, those sales are going up. When sales go up, production goes up. When production goes up, lots of things happen. So here's the typical path, okay? You got an assembly plant, you got tier 1 supplier, tier 2 supplier, tier 3. Tier 3, right? So you need, this is what typically, in a broad brush stroke, this is what you need to make a car. And you need every one of these parts. You can't make them without. You can't sell 99% of a motor vehicle. Trust me. So you get the announcement, right, from one of these companies that says, we're increasing production because demand is there. We're going to increase production at the plant. Well, what else? What do you need, right? You need more. You need more stamp parts. You need more components, and you need more basic parts to flow up that supply chain. Well, where do they come from? It's certainly, when you're an OEM, right, So, some generic announcement is made. Millions new investment, new jobs to be created, so many units of production increase. So you're the assembly plant at the top and you say, well, we need to produce more vehicles, so, excuse me, we're going to bring on a third shift, which has happened at almost every assembly plant in the country right now. We're going to bring on a third shift. Well, you can't just use your same people for a third shift. So you put out a hiring notice. And what happened? Right? Folks come up typically from the tier ones. Entering into an assembly plant to assemble motor vehicles is, believe it or not, a very knowledge-based job. You need to have a lot of experience doing this, and they like to get people that have experience, manufacturing experience already. Tier ones do that. So tier ones turn around and go, well, man, if they're making more, I got to make more. And I just lost some people. I need more people. So what do? Right? They grab them from the lower tier level. And at tier two, same things happen. I need more people. I got to make more parts. What do? You know where this is going, right? This poor guy down at the bottom says, I better cancel my vacation. Because as you know, and a lot of you folks that are working on the ground right now, this is one of the main issues right here, is how do you fill these blank spaces, right? You had a whole number of sessions about it yesterday, workforce development. How do you get people into those spots? I don't have the exact answer for you. That's what you guys are doing. But certainly, you need to be working with industry very closely on this. So small supplier needs, and it's not just people. When they're capacity constrained, there's a number of things that they need. They may have good people. They may have a lot of automation. So what do they need? They need additional space to meet demand. And this is right now, additional space. They need new equipment to replace worn out equipment. Remember, everybody's working 3 shifts, overtime and the like. Some of these car plants are working where 22 hours a day. And so you get 2 hours. If something breaks, if something runs down, you got 2 hours to fix that thing. Some of them are scheduling so it's only Sunday. They're running 24 hours a day, and Sunday is the only day you can do maintenance. So, the same thing's happening with the suppliers. They don't have time to stop. They need new equipment. They need loan application assistance. When they go into a bank, the money's there. But, some of these folks, one, can't get out of the shop because they're on the shop floor helping their guys make the parts. And two is there's a lot of programs that can be brought to bear to help them that maybe they don't know about. They need workforce training and recruitment. They need innovation, collaboration. They need just process improvements. How do I make my plant more efficient? We've been talking to small suppliers in interviews, asking them and hearing this exact list from them we're working toward it. We have an idea about how to help these folks in a very coordinated way. In the interviews, the small suppliers are telling us, one, they want to grow. Two, the business is out there for them to grow. They can grow their company, their 100-person company to 150 because the business is out there. But three, they tell us at the same time they've been turning down requests for quotes because they can't pull people away to do the paperwork, to do a quote, and then what if they got the job? Then what would they do? It's kind of a dilemma. It's a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity, and the opportunity is now. And so you need to be asking yourself, how are you assisting small and medium companies address the increased demand? How do they come up to capacity? If demand for workers, technologies, and parts exceeds supply, these will be found elsewhere. Guys like Mark and all his plants at Ford will continue to produce those vehicles. And they're just going to say to their supply chain, I don't care where you get the parts, just get them, because we're not going to miss out on production. The funny thing about the business right now, when you run at capacity, if you can't keep up with demand for sales, and you have to slow down because you don't have enough parts, or you have to stop because one of your key suppliers had a machine breakdown, that's production you'll never make up this year. Because remember, you don't have any extra time. You can't run more than 24 hours a day. So they need your help. And if they're not panicking, if they're not showing panic, I don't know why. They should be. So how are you encouraging, on the innovation side, how are you encouraging university researchers and company R&D departments to find each other? There's a lot of smart people out there, a lot of ideas that need to be solved in this industry. Cars are going to be driving themselves in the not too distant future. Cars are going to be talking to each other. Lots of environmental issues are coming to play. They need to get greater fuel economy. So all of these folks are very important. We need unprecedented cooperation between public and private, and even private partnerships that you folks can help foster. So the industry needs it, to sum up: educated, skilled workforce, low labor costs, business climate, a good business climate, low cost, reliable energy, central geographic location, and logistics expertise. And it seems like from some of the brochures I've seen as I've looked at Missouri, that's a lot. You folks have a lot of this stuff in your favor. So keep pushing. The opportunities are out there. And with that, I look forward to your questions. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be back here in Kansas City because I actually spent part of my career with Ford here, working at the assembly plant in our sales division back in 2001, and it's nice to be back here. In fact, I've still got family in the area, so I was able to visit some of them during my visit. I have a very brief number of slides, a very brief presentation I want to take you through. And this is about, I appreciated Kim's remarks because there is a lot of what I call optimism right now in the industry. 5 years ago, not so much so. With gas prices hitting over $4 per gallon for the first time, followed by the recession, there was a lot of concern about what the future of the automotive industry was going to look like. We've been able to work through that, and I'm happy to say at Ford Motor Company, thanks to the foresight of our chief engineer, our CEO, Alan Mullally, he was able to get us invested so that we could have a future in the automotive industry without having to go through some of the restructuring that some of our other domestic competitors did. With that, I'm going to talk primarily about Ford F-Series trucks, because that's what I'm most familiar with as the F-150 marketing manager, as well as the Kansas City assembly plant where we manufacture the F-150. And I've titled my remarks just Keeping America and Missouri Working. And I did this, it's a little bit of a play on words. Right now, we have one of our marketing campaigns right now is called We Own Work. And it's about the fact that the people that use trucks for work, by and large, choose F-150 and F-Series Super Duty more than they choose any other truck to get the job done. So we like to say we own work. But it's also about, obviously, putting people to work. And then at the same time, obviously, people need trucks to do work, and we're putting them to work making the trucks. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. My remarks are structured in, one, I want to just give you a little current setup. Two, take a look at the past in terms of what we've done, and then give you an idea of what the future is for the F-Series truck and the Kansas City assembly plant. So the F-Series pickup has been the best-selling truck in America for 36 years, and I am very confident, based on our current lead this year, that it will be 37 years come January. Not only that, it has been the best-selling vehicle in the United States for 31 years, and that'll be 32 in January. So you think about all of the other vehicles out there, F-Series trucks, not only the best-selling truck, but the best-selling vehicle for over 31 years. The other thing, if you look at that in terms of the sales numbers, this year we're forecasting right now, and this is an approximate forecast, I don't know if you can put that back up there for me, but 750,000 sales F-Series trucks sold this year in the United States. Now, we produce all F-Series trucks here in the United States, the final assemblies here in the United States. Those are just the ones that we'll sell in the United States. We also sell F-Series trucks in Canada, Mexico, and a number of export markets as well. But here in the United States, 750,000, and that's phenomenal. That's up 16%. If you, that aligns very nicely with Kim's slide where he showed that pickup trucks were up about 15.8%. 413 is what he had forecast. So we're right in line with that. So we are very, very optimistic about the future of F-Series trucks, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about why we think this number will grow even bigger next year. So we think F-Series production is pretty safe. In terms of just taking a quick look back, I want to take you through what we've done at the Kansas City Assembly Plant, which we call KCAP, and the investment and growth we've done there. So if you go back to January of 2011, we announced that we were going to add another vehicle to the Kansas City Assembly Plant to replace the Escape, for which we were moving production to a different plant. At the same time, we committed to invest $400 million into the plant. Well, just a few months later, in October, we went ahead and confirmed that the vehicle that was coming to the assembly plant was going to be the Transit, which is an all-new vehicle for the United States. We've had it in Europe and other markets for a while, but we are bringing it to the United States as a full-size van. And it comes in just all sorts of different configurations. We think it will be a home run here in the United States, just as it has been in the rest of the world. We also announced at that time we were going to increase our investment in the plant from $400 million to $1.1 billion. And that was going to include some of these things I've listed here: a new body shop at the plant, new tooling in the final assembly area, an upgraded paint shop, which allows us to include even higher technology, better paint technology, and then all new 437,000 square foot integrated stamping plant in Liberty, Missouri. They're just adjacent to the plant. So all of that was part of this $1.1 billion investment that we announced in 2011. At the same time, we also announced that we were going to add a second shift of F-150 production to the plant starting in May of 2012. And this was, Kim alluded to this, when we decide that we want to add production, it is not let's just start building more F-150s, let's add another shift. The lead times for doing these things, because you have to bring an entire supply base on board. You have to hire people and train them, but you also have to bring an entire supply base on board as well so that they can support, obviously bringing on another entire shift of production of the F-150 involves a lot of suppliers, a lot of parts, and they need time. So we announced this back in October 2011, and we did, and as I'll show here, in May of 2012, the second shift. It was basically the very end of May. We brought on the second shift of F-150 production, and it added 800 workers to the F-150 line there at the plant. And now, just this last month, we announced that a third crew of F-150 production launched, and we added another 900 workers for that. Now, I will say right now, at the time we had to make the decision, once again, because of these lead times, this was not a decision we made in July to add a third shift or a third crew of production to the assembly plant for F-150. We were making this decision last year, second half of last year, kind of looking at what does the future look like? Well, at the time we were making this decision, we had a lot of open production capacity already. We just brought on the second shift at Kansas City. It looked like we were going to be good, but we started doing some forecasting in terms of, well, what would happen if we did get lift in the industry? Would we be ready with the product to be able to sell to demand? And the answer was no, we wouldn't. So we looked at this as an insurance policy. Adding this third crew was more of a, let's have the capacity in place so that if we need it, it's there. And that's not investment comes along with that. We are hiring people, so we're committing ourselves to a certain amount of capital outlays as well as some fixed costs. But we felt it was the right decision to make, and it was the right decision to make. That production has just come online. That's part of the reason why we're going to be able to sell 750,000 F-Series trucks this year. And next year, we're looking at doing more. So it was a great decision. In fourth quarter of this year, as I said, we'll have the Transit coming online next year. We've got another 1,100 workers that will be hired on at the assembly plant to handle the production of the Transit here at the plant. So with that's a total of 2,000 jobs just in 2013 calendar year that we've added here at the assembly plant. And Kim alluded to this a little bit about what we call the multiplier effect. And while we're bringing these 2,000 jobs into the assembly plant, obviously he took you through this whole supply chain of Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And so when we do that, we look at about what we call an estimate, about a times 9 multiplier, where there are another 18,000 jobs being created when we bring those 2,000 assembly jobs online. So we think this is definitely good. And we do have suppliers that have to be located right here next to the plant. So this is obviously not all Missouri-based, but we do have, as Kim alluded to, we like to keep suppliers as much as possible close to final assembly. So yes, that does add jobs here in Missouri as well. the future. So I've got 2 slides left. I just want to talk about the future. I'm optimistic about F-Series. I want you to be optimistic about F-Series and about the prospects for the Kansas City assembly plant. This is a chart which, without getting into the detail, the lower line in the orange is U.S. housing starts. And we know that there's a high correlation between housing starts and full-size pickup truck sales. We've been tracking it for decades, and there is a very good correlation. In fact, you can see for those of you that are statisticians, we've got it up there in the upper left-hand corner there. Here to the right, so we've got through 2012. Here to the right, we've got the forecast from IHS and MEA in terms of what they're forecasting, what they're looking at, what housing starts are going to look like. Well, as you can see, they're going to trend back up. You can see where we've been, and their forecast is we may not get back to the peak, but we're definitely going to start heading back in that direction. And full-size pickup sales are going to follow that. So we are very optimistic that the full-size pickup market is going to continue to grow here in the United States. This is my last slide, and I just wanted to end with this because this gets a little bit more down to F-150 and F-Series specifically in Ford. Manufacturing a product, there are all sorts of manufacturing investment costs and labor costs and things like that. But there is also a huge upfront R&D cost and investment cost in terms of actually getting the product ready to be manufactured. In January of this year at the North American International Auto Show, we showed what we called the Atlas concept. The Atlas concept, and I'll just run you through there, it is not a production vehicle, but it does preview future design direction for the F-Series trucks. It was received phenomenally. People loved it. In fact, I was getting requests for when can I order my Atlas. Well, you can't order one, there's only one. But they loved the design direction. So I just want to let you know that this is, we said this is a preview of future design direction. Now this is not a production feasible vehicle, but as we go forward with the next generation of F-Series trucks, I'm very confident that you will see this type of design language in the next generation truck. And it has been, as I said, very well received by truck customers and by the public in general. Second, it showcases productivity innovations. The one misconception about pickup trucks, and I liked that Kim's remarks in talking about the supply base and some of the R&D, and especially like with hybrids and things like that. But even in pickup trucks, automobiles are very complicated, very sophisticated, very technologically advanced vehicles. I mean, I guess products, they're all vehicles. But so we continue to do this. So whether it's innovations in technology that's used to improve fuel economy, improve power, improve capability, or in the case of pickup truck customers, and just improve productivity, there's a lot of innovation there. There's a lot of R&D in terms of developing that. But this pickup truck also showcased some of that innovation. Trailer backup assist, which really simply was just, you've got a dial on your dashboard. When you've got to back up a trailer, instead of trying to steer your truck to make the trailer go where you want, you use the dial to steer the trailer. The truck steers itself. Something that people are like, wow, I hate backing up my trailer. That would be awesome. So this is an innovation. Is there technology involved in doing that? You bet. There's a lot of technology involved in doing that. Integrated spotlights, so that you can see them there on the mirrors, allows people at work sites, camping, maybe hunting, whatever they're doing, provide forward illumination even when the truck's not on. And then stowable ramps is another thing. How do I get large items into the bed of the truck? But I don't want to carry the stuff with me all the time. These are stowable, hide underneath the bed. Just another innovation there. And there were a lot more. We also highlighted opportunities to continue to improve full-size pickup fuel economy. So this is one of those things. Most pickup truck customers will tell us, I have to have a pickup truck. I love my pickup truck. I need it. I couldn't get my job done in a sedan. I've got to have the pickup truck. If you could give me better fuel economy, that would be even better. So we do. We focus on that. Mentioned the EcoBoost torture test. The EcoBoost engine, when we launched it with the 2011 model year, it's this whole idea of downsizing the engine, but turbocharging, direct injection, adding technology so you get more fuel economy, but have the same capability and power as a larger engine. So in this truck, we introduced active aerodynamics, things like grille shutters that will close to improve the aerodynamics automatically at highway speeds and then reopen at lower speeds when engine cooling is required. And then we also indicated that the next generation of EcoBoost engine would be coming, was featured on this. So I just wanted you to be aware that while we've done all of these things at the Kansas City Assembly Plant based on what we see as current demand for the product, we are also very, very optimistic about the future, and we're investing in the future of the F-150 to make sure that we can continue to employ all of those people at the assembly plant and continue to maximize production there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning. Let's see, you got the research guy, you got the manufacturer, and now I'm the supplier, and I'm geeked, and I think I'm going to build another plant and just leave here right now and just go and do it. You know? First of all, I'm happy to be here. When we first talked about, and I was approached about coming here and having a few remarks, one of the first things they said, well, why don't you talk about Washington, D.C., and make some slides and talk about what's going on in D.C. And I said, well, that's real easy. We put one slide with a lot of blood on it, and then we're done. And we don't have to worry about anything. So I can tell you that it's very, very nice to be in Missouri and out of Washington, D.C., because I have to go back to Washington, D.C., and that's not looking good at this point. But I appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts and to tell you a little bit about the actual supplier industry, because I believe that the supplier industry and the supplier base is something that not a lot of people know about. So before I do that, and before I begin to tell you more about the suppliers, I want to give you an idea of who Magna is, because I believe that if I tell you a little bit about Magna, the credibility that we introduce here gives us more and lets you know more about what we're going to say. First of all, Magna was founded in 1957 by Frank Stranick in Toronto, Canada. Magna is the largest automotive supplier in North America, and we're the fourth largest in the world. We're the most diversified automotive supplier because we have 10 individual core competencies. So our product areas go from seats to powertrains to body systems to electronics and all over the vehicle platform itself. We also have the capacity, and we do perform vehicle assembly, although we do it in Graz, Austria, but we do have a facility in Graz, Austria that assembles 200,000 cars per year. We supply every auto manufacturer in North America, Europe, and Asia, and you can see the list includes Ford, GM, Chrysler, who are really our largest customers in the world. But we do supply to everybody, and even some of the new niche players like Aston Martin and the rapidly growing companies in China like Geely and Dongfeng. So again, let me give you a little idea about Magna's global presence. Our worldwide footprint consists of 29 countries comprising 314 manufacturing plants, 89 engineering, and I think that's important, 89 engineering and product development sales facilities, and we employ about 123,000 people all over the world. Our revenue for 2012 was about $30.8 billion. We just announced our second quarter financial results just recently. We had projected 2013 that we would be at $32 billion. We now revised that projection, and we'll go somewhere around $34 to $37 billion in 2013. Equally important is our USA footprint, which consists of 60 manufacturing facilities and 16 engineering and product development centers, sales offices, and we're in 14 states, which includes 2 facilities in Missouri. We presently in the United States employ about 20,000 Americans. So, just to give you an idea of the breadth of our footprint in the U.S., I created a map to show where the facilities are located, our manufacturing facilities and engineering facilities in the United States. So you might ask yourself, why do you have so many and why are they so spread out? Well, there's 2 basic reasons. Number one, and most importantly, at Magna we believe that wherever we sell it is where we build it. The second thing is our customers, who are Ford, GM, Chrysler, everybody, they require what's called just-in-time. And a lot of people really don't understand what just-in-time is. Just-in-time says to the manufacturer or the supplier that you have to have that part at the manufacturer's facility just in time for it to go to the assembly line and be put in the vehicle. And I'll give you an example, and the biggest example is the seat business. If you look at the seating business, and there used to be a time where the automotive OEM would take seats and he would put them in inventory, and then they'd have a guy and he'd go pull them out of inventory and bring them to the assembly line. Not anymore. What happens today is called sequencing. So as the vehicle goes into the paint shop in an assembly line, there's a sequenced computer specification that is sent to our seating plant. And then that tells us what that seat has to be, what the options are on the seat, whether it's leather, whether it's cloth or anything else. And then the two start going down the line together. The vehicle at the manufacturing assembly plant and the seat at our plant. When it comes to the end of our manufacturing or assembly process, that seat does not go to inventory. It comes right off the assembly line, right into the truck, and right to the assembly plant to go into that vehicle. So how long does it take? From the time that a seat comes off our assembly line to the time it goes into the vehicle is a maximum of 4.25 hours. And so just think of that. If we get behind by 10 seats, we shut their plant down and cost them a lot of money, and by the way, could cost us a customer, but you know, we try to make sure that doesn't happen. So therefore, we're forced to put these plants close to proximity, and again, the circle used to be 25 miles. When JIT first came out, the circle was 25 miles. You had to be 25 miles from the plant. It is now, because of technology and logistics and everything that's come about, it's 125 miles. But you cannot, if you supply a plant in this country, you cannot be more than 125 miles from that plant. So a lot of people do it. A lot of people that are not Magna do it by satellite facilities, doing this and that. We believe that the manufacturing process and the quality control process, what we call world-class manufacturing, that has to be done close to the customer, and the customer has to want to be able to come to our facility, inspect our facility, and say, these are my parts, and these parts are being done right. Having said that, let's take a look at Missouri. Magna has two facilities in Missouri, one for body systems, which is a brand new facility that is just being built. Well, it's built now, and it's scheduled to go in production in the first quarter of 2014. It's right now 213,000 square feet. It's going to employ some 200 to 300 people over the next couple of years. And I feel for people in economic development, because what happens to you is something that we don't do. What happens to you is you get a lot of people that come to your state and they say, oh, you know what? We got this great idea. We're going to build this. We're going to put this facility here, and we're going to employ this many people. And then all of a sudden they say, you know what? But it's going to happen over the next 7 years. Not with us. And I don't believe that's the way it should be. When we come to a community and we say we're going to build a plant, we have a platform contract. That platform contract normally is a 5-year contract. So we know what the volumes are going to be. We know what it's going to cost us to put that facility in or any other facility in, and we know what the employment levels, and our employment levels, if we start today and we've got SOP in 2015, you have to be ramped up by 2015. You have to have those people hired by 2015. So I think that is the way we take a look at doing our part with economic development people, to say, look, we understand what you're trying to do for us, but we also understand our responsibility for our commitment to you. Our other facility in Missouri is in Excelsior Springs. That is a seating facility, and that facility actually was shut down to allow for the tooling change for Ford Motor Company. And now it's being brought back online. There will be about 95 people in that facility. It's a pretty good sized facility. But that's Magna. So, I mean, I can talk about Magna all day because I work for Magna and they pay me the big bucks. But you know, so I was here to talk about the supplier industry. So let me take you, and before we move on to the panel discussion, I just want to take you through a little journey through the automotive supplier industry, just to give its perspective of what the industry brings to the U.S. and what it brings to Missouri. So if you look at these numbers, I think the key thing to look at right here is that we love the OEMs, they're our customer, we do what we want them to do, but transitioning from the 60s, the 70s to what is now the 2000s and the future, automotive suppliers actually supply 2/3 of the content of an automobile or a truck or anything else. So it is the automotive suppliers who bring to the table the parts that are needed. The OEMs still do engineer and manufacture their vehicle. They do the engineering of where they want that vehicle to go in the market. But when you really look at it, when you look at a lot of the new technology developments, those technology developments come from the supplier industry. It is the supplier industry that does all of the real nuances, and then the automotive OEMs, they have to say, this is good for the market, this is good for our vehicle, and then we're going to put it in our vehicle. For instance, Magna alone, last year we spent $350 million on R&D in the United States of America. That's a lot of money. If you look at our input and our investment in the United States, period, in capital, last year we spent $1.7 billion in capital investment in the United States of America. That's a lot of money. So the supplier industry, while it is not the people who manufacture the vehicles and the OEMs are our customers, we play a vital part of what goes on in the industry itself. And I think the key to that 2/3 is something. And we talked about jobs. So we had Kim talk about jobs, we had Mark talk about jobs. And so what I don't want to do is confuse the issue here, is that because everybody can tell you what their drive-down jobs are and what their participation in drive-down jobs. And if you take them individually, you say, wow, man, we got about 1.5 million jobs here. So it is not that way. It is kind of like an inclusion trickle-down effect. But there are some things that you should know about the supplier industry in the United States itself. Number one, the supplier industry is responsible for approximately 734,000 direct jobs in the United States, which equals about 1.27 million indirect jobs and an additional 1.62 induced jobs, totaling about 3.62 million total American jobs from the supplier industry once we get started, or about 5 jobs created for every direct job that we create. More importantly is that this employment generates about $220 million in annual U.S. wages and benefits, and adds to contribution of $355 billion to the gross domestic product of the total U.S., which, by the way, equals about 3% of GDP. That is just the automotive supplier industry. So if you look at where this is spread out, the regional distribution of total and U.S. direct employment that comes from the automotive industry, you can see that the Midwest is about 51% of the total. The Southwest is coming in fast. The Midwest, by the way, includes Missouri, includes Michigan. I don't know why I'd call it the Midwest, I don't know. But, you know, it's a little north to me, and it's cold. I live there. But it does, the Midwest is 51%. So that's where the direct employment goes to. Excuse me. And if you look at Missouri, Missouri is actually 14th. In the country with direct jobs for the supplier industry, which is really good, by the way, considering the fact that the concentration of OEM manufacturing plants is not as great in Missouri as they are in other places. Obviously, Michigan is number 1, Ohio is number 2, but Missouri being 14th is pretty good with 16,648 direct supplier jobs right now. So the question that becomes, and the question that everybody wants to know, is this big boom in the automotive industry. What's going on? What's happening? Does it really end? So there was a study, and I like the study because it looked at the suppliers on and looked at their health and looked at 3,200 North American suppliers and graded them on a 100-point system as to where their health is. And you can see that in 2008, we were pretty good. And then 2009 is when we took the big hit. And you can see it going back now in 2010, 2011, and stabilizing in 2012. And I think the key to this is that the health of the supplier industry relative to its revenue, relative to its profit levels, are in fact increasing. And why did this happen? Number one, we had a big problem in the United States in the supplier industry. And our biggest problem, everybody says, well, you weren't selling this, you weren't selling that. That's really not the problem. The problem was our break-even point. And the problem is that if you go back to 2008, the projected break-even point was about 10.5 million units. So the market had to produce 10.5 million units for the supplier industry to be healthy, okay? Well, what did we go down to? We went down to 8 million units, and what happened is you had about 500 bankruptcies of suppliers at that point. Now, we survived it at Magna, but we survived it for one reason and one reason only. We had $1.6 billion in unencumbered cash reserve with very little debt. And I think that if anybody has that kind of money, you're going to survive that downturn. But the key to what's going on is that the market potential is the first time in the history when you look at a downturn of an industry that you look at the market potential. The market potential for automobiles never left us. It's just people stopped buying them, which means that, and which is where you look at the automotive industry and understand that the automotive industry is critical to the economy relative to the consumer, more so than almost anything else, because the first thing that the consumer does if the economy starts to go down is they say, I'm gonna keep my car. I'm not buying a new car, right? And if you look at the age of vehicles in the United States, the average 3 years ago was 9 years. It is now 11 years. So you have people not turning these cars as much as they should or as we want to. Obviously, cash for clunkers was a big deal for everybody because that started the boom to go back. What we see at this point is that we see, as has been projected by everybody, is that the market originally was projected to go back to 16 million units by 2017. We see it being at 16 million units by 2015. The problem that creates for the supply, for the OEM, and especially for the tier one suppliers, but a good thing for the communities across the United States, is that we don't have the capacity to build these parts. We constricted this industry. We were forced to constrict this industry. And right now, if you look at the production capacity in the United States, it's about 12 million units. So where do we go? We go back to, I think we go back to the point, at some point where we used to, when I came up, is that if you bought a car, you had to wait 6 weeks to get that car. And then it was delivered, and then you had a car. Obviously, we don't want to go back there because the consumer changes its mind too quickly at that point. So what has got to happen is that we've got to increase production and we've got to increase production capacity, but I think most of that capacity increase is probably going to come at the supplier level. And what the suppliers had to do is to look at that market, to see that market coming. The suppliers had to reduce their break-even point. And right now, we believe, and we have reduced that break-even point. And if you look at the ratio that has happened in the United States, is the vehicle production will increase using this 15.7 million unit number by the end of this year. From 2009, the vehicle production will have increased 83%. That's huge, 83%. However, the supplier break-even levels have only increased by 26%. So what we have done as a supply industry to get healthy, to make it good for the communities that we live in, is we've brought that break-even point and brought it in line to the point that we can break even, we can make money, we can be good corporate citizens in the community, and at the same time, we can supply the industry with what it needs. So in closing, what I would simply say is that things are good. Stay away from Washington. Don't worry about it. I got it handled. Thank you.
Good morning, Missourians. How are you? Good. And anybody else, too. I'd like to tell you a little bit of story here about what an upfitter does, a little bit about what NAPIDE is all about, and the economic side of what's happened with our partnership with Ford. Start out with thank you for having me here today, representing our company. The NAPIDE manufacturing company is located in Quincy, Illinois, but I work for the NAPIDE Truck Equipment Company here in Kansas City. It is one of 4 Missouri locations. We have a location in St. Peters, Jefferson City, and West Quincy. When you talk about longevity, NAPIDE offers a pretty long line of longevity since they started their quest in 1848. We currently, I in Kansas City, work for the 5th and 6th generation of NAPIDE family. There's another generation to carry on the family-owned business, but they're a pretty small group of people right now. A brief overview of NAPIDE manufacturing. As I said, they started in 1848. They came up the Mississippi River and landed in Quincy. Wanted them to veer a little bit left once they got around Hannibal to get them in Missouri, but they did start off in Quincy. And they started building wagons. They built wagons for the gold rush is how they really got started. And they continued to build wagons. And we probably got our first big break when we started building for Henry Ford. He introduced the Model T, and we upfitted it with a wood cab and a wood platform. So you had to believe that was a pretty foxy looking outfit, actually. This started our relationship with Ford. We talk about economic development. I think about, we were in business about 13 years and the Civil War broke out, so that was a pretty good little hiccup. And then we had a stock market crash and a couple of world wars, but we carried on. During the 50s and 60s, we were the largest manufacturer of farm bodies in the United States. And then we jumped to about 1988, and we started building we're the largest manufacturer of service bodies. And in 1997, we moved into a 400,000 square foot building in Quincy that we're in today after a couple of floods from, I think we had one in about 73 and then one in 95. NAPIDE Truck Equipment has been in Kansas City since 1978. They are a source of technical and service assistance to serve the upfitters, ready to assist in fleets, local markets, municipalities, truck dealers, and end users, from a light-duty application to a heavy application. That includes what I said earlier, service bodies, what we call a KUV, a NAPIDE utility van that goes on the back of a van, a crane body, dump bodies, snow plows, spreaders, and all types of things that go on trucks. NAPIDE manufacturing currently has over 200 distributors throughout the United States. Most of those are located in major metropolitan cities. And to become an upfitter, okay, well, what does an upfitter really do? An upfitter, we kind of consider ourselves a shop on wheels. Whenever you go out and you buy a truck, we can upfit that from, as we say on the 150, a light-duty upfit, which would be everything from the cab back is what we kind of consider an upfit. An upfit could be no more than a toolbox for someone that would come and service your heating, cooling, air conditioning, to something pretty complicated. a lot of what we do in upfittings concern the cable TV industry, telecommunication, oil exploration, anywhere pest control, construction supervisor vehicles, down to trucks that take the snow and ice off your streets during the wintertime. In the recent years, we've got very involved in a couple of items, the LP conversion, the C and G conversion, which we're trying to get off the ground. We're doing some of them now. I think you'll see a lot stronger things to come on them. How you partner up with Ford is a pretty unique situation to where you register with NHTSA. You fill out applications to be a qualified vehicle modifier, because they definitely want whoever touches their trucks to make sure, if you're going to put a bolt on it, what the bolt's made out of, what it's going to do, how it's going to affect their truck, and how long it's going to last. The QVM modifier program is something that we're very involved in. It's an assessment done once a year at our location. We're right across from Worlds of Fun off of 435. They come in once a year and they grade us on federal motor vehicle safety standards, quality control issues, manufacturing processes and controls, philosophy on continuous improvements, Ford guidelines, representing a vehicle that's in progress, and customer support systems. When I talk about upfitting, there's a couple of ways to upfit that involves people throughout the country. One is a local that would come to our store and we would upfit the truck, and it's usually somebody in the Kansas City metropolitan area. And there's also considered ship-through. Ship-through is a service offered by the motor vehicle manufacturers for the transportation of vehicles from the production line, which happens to be here in Clay Como. Through our facility, they bring it right to us. We put it back in the system, which goes to all 50 states. And there's also something that you can do called a drop ship. If it won't go, everything we do has to go through the rail system. There's also a drop ship. So if you're a company in St. Louis, Atlanta, wherever, and you have 50 units that you want to build them all exactly the same, they bring them to our place, we build them, and then they get put out through distribution and get put out to the different places where they're going to end up. So they may have a job where a construction company, for example, we've got a 300 unit what we're doing right now. They're building some bridges in San Francisco. We're going to bring those trucks in. We'll upfit them with fire extinguishers, toolboxes, first aid kits, rotating lights, and then those trucks will be sent back into the system and sent to San Francisco. That also is for all 50 states. We talk about the economic impact. With the loss of the Ford Escape, I just almost hate to see a grown man cry, which would have been me, when they decided they were going to take the Escape out of Kansas City. We had built almost 12,000 of them. We had a very good relationship with a couple of local companies here, Ericsson and Sprint, but probably our biggest build was with the insurance company. Flow at Progressive, if you've ever seen one of those, we brought those trucks to our facility and put the decals on the side. We put some laptop computers on the inside for first response units. But that being said, whenever we found out that we were going to get the new Transit, we were very excited. We have teamed up with a company in Germany that builds racks and bins for the Transit in Germany, and throughout Europe they're the largest of their kind, and we will be installing those on the Transit here in Kansas City when it comes out. We've invested millions of dollars to accommodate the fleet and the local customers and truck dealers and municipals and end user on racks and bins. We also have a large corporation that we do a lot of decals and wraps for. When you'll see these trucks driving down the road, it seems that everybody wants to have a billboard on wheels. So that's something we become very involved with. We have seen a large growth, obviously, in our company here. We started out with a 40,000 square foot facility with 9 acres and about 36 employees. We've since added 105,000 square feet in the underground, and also purchased 12 acres to stockpile trucks that'll be built at both locations. We've added more employees. Now we're up to 64. 2014, when the transit does come on board, we'll be adding another 35 employees. So upfitting is something that I think we all, may know something about. It's dear to our heart because that's what we've been doing for about 165 years. Whenever you get up in the morning and you turn on your TV, some electrician had something to do with that, which we probably may have built the truck for. You turn on your TV, as I said, we upfit trucks for cable TV services. You go out and you see that your yard has been sprayed with wheat. We upfit a lot of the landscaping people in town and around the country. We've done hundreds and hundreds of trucks that are for pest control. So if anything that you can imagine that goes on the back, from the cab back, that probably had something to do with an upfitter. We're proud to be a part of what Ford's doing. Whenever you had the opportunity to be right next to an assembly plant, that gives you a lot of capabilities. If you are in just a town that's not having an assembly plant, you do rely on local business, but we're very fortunate to have the Claycoma plant kick up and have 2 units that we do a lot with, both the F-150 and the Transit to come. I have a different group, a sales group here that work for me in Kansas City that just call on local, and I always kind of give them things that I want them to always remember, because we're all in competition. A competition is good, whether it's for your city, your state, your whatever it may be. I always tell them service and protect your existing customer base. Strive to attract new business. Always run a tighter ship, and a little bit of a racer in me. Always keep your competition in the rearview mirror, but don't let them pass you. So with that, I'll thank you very much, and I think we'll have a discussion now. Thank you.